Welcome to the Get Real Podcast, your high-octane boost of in the trenches, tell it like it is reality therapy for personal, business, and real estate investing success. With your hosts, powerpreneurs, Angela Thomas and Ron Phillips. It's time to get real.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Get Real Podcast. You're here with Ron Phillips, Angela Thomas, as always.
Hey, guys.
And we are here with a special guest today, man. I'm pumped to have my buddy Cory Peterson on the show. Let me tell you who he is and a little bit about him. But Cory, man, welcome.
Thanks, brother. Man, I'm glad to hear it. Hey, by the way, today's the first that we're recording this because rent is due today.
Rent is due today. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes,
absolutely.
it is.
So Cory is the owner of Kahuna Investments. He is the big kahuna, if you didn't know that. So if there's any other kahunas out there, this is the big kahuna. And man, he strives to provide his investors with cash flow returns, long-term capital appreciation, all through multifamily apartments, which we're going to talk about today, because he's acquired almost $100 million in multifamily properties all across the country. And he's a best-selling author, and he spoke at NASDAQ and Harvard, and he's been on just about every news outlet you could be on. The dude is a rock star. In addition to that, he's a great personal friend of mine, and he's best known, I think, at least in my world, he's best known for sunshine and palm trees on your terms. Isn't that right, Cory?
That's it. Sunsets and palm trees on your terms, baby.
Who doesn't want sunsets and palm trees on their terms, Cory? Tell me somebody.
I mean, listen, that was the dream that I had almost 18 years ago, man. That's how I got in real estate, is I met this guy named Bruce. And Bruce was, he had a home in Hawaii. My mom was actually married to him. And, they invited me and my girlfriend, now my wife of 17 years, by the way. We went out to Hawaii for the first time, and it was magical, dude. Like, Bruce had a house right on the beach. And, I remember walking the beach, and we watched the sun come up, and then it was like a light show, the spray from the waves, and, the sun coming up and just piercing through it. And I remember looking over at Bruce's house from across the way, and I was like, what the hell does this guy do?
Right.
He had fine art, nice cars, and his phone was not ringing. Like, he didn't have any cares. And when I finally got enough courage to ask him, he said he was in real estate and that he owned apartments.
Nice.
Whoa.
There you go.
Well,
I left the island thinking he was the big kahuna.
all right. Hey, so we're going to get back to that, Cory, but since I don't know you quite as well as Ron, I've just seen you in professional settings. You gotta take me back further than that. I heard you have a good story. Tell us how the big kahuna came to be. Like, where'd you grow up? What'd your parents do for a living? Take us way back there.
Oh, gosh.
Because Cory was not raised with a silver spoon. So, I mean,
I want to hear the story, man.
Anybody out there thinking that you got to have a silver spoon upbringing to own $100 million
apartments? Yeah.
Tell them how it is, Cory.
It's just not the case. So I grew up in West Plains, Missouri. That's in the Ozarks. Like, if you watched Ozarks in Netflix, that's what we're talking about, right? But a ding, 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 ding. And so I grew up on a 100-acre farm, and let's just say I was voted not most likely to succeed. I was an average student. I barely made it out of high school, but I was raised by a great family, and on the farm, and like, if you can understand farm life, you have a lot of space, okay, and a lot of time, and so you go out there and you have to start dreaming, right? You dream. And I never reined myself in. I dreamed. I truly believe that I could do anything.
Cool.
But that wasn't until like 7th grade. Like, that was great until 7th grade. Okay, because in 7th grade, like, someone threw me the curveball, and I was like, ugh. Because like my grade school teacher, 7th grade, this guy, I'm not gonna say his name, but he's my teacher, and he was also my coach, right? And back then, I was a pretty good athlete back then. back then, okay? But I really respected this guy. And so he asked this question, what do you want to be when you grow up? It was to the class. And, this is something that I kind of hid, like my dream.
Right.
And so I was hesitant first, but finally I was like, you know what? Screw it. Today's the day, right? I'm like, pick me, right? And so he does. And I go into the front of the room, face the class, and I go, I want to be, or I didn't say I want to, I said, I'm going to be, like as I am, a professional baseball player. And I'm telling you, not as soon as those words left my mouth, right? The teacher squared me in the eyes, and he's like, based upon the odds, that will never happen.
Oh, what?
I mean, cold as steel.
Ow.
And I start looking around. I'm like, what in the, what's going on? And then I'm looking at all my friends, or and they believe him. They don't believe me. They believe him. And I remember like my head dropped and my shoulders shrunk. And it was the first time that I started like, am I good enough? Can I do it? And I mean, it really scarred me. And words are powerful. And but now as I've gotten older, what I realized though is because like before you go hating on him, because he was a good guy. But the problem is that my dream was a lot bigger than his.
Yep. Amen. Uh-huh.
And I look back at that moment and say, all he saw was this kid running as fast as he could off a huge cliff, right? And he saw the pain and agony of the fall. And the truth is, that's where all the growing happens, man. Yeah. And, I had to be willing to do that run and that dive, not just once, but 1,000 times over. And really, so I always say I was really good at copying, right? And my teachers never liked it. But in my adult life and my business life, it's the actual greatest asset that I own. I've never said that I was that smart. I've always said I'm just a student, right? And I've learned from very smart people. I picked very good mentors in my life, and I did what they did, and I didn't do what they didn't do. And so, and lo and behold, cool. I'm successful.
Heck yeah. Right? So how did you get there? Like, this teacher kind of stomped on your dream a little bit, great guy and everything, but sure. How did you, pick yourself up and find those mentors and get started,
Well, I sold cars.
Okay. Okay. Really? Wait.
Cory, that's where all failed major league players go. They sell cars.
Nice.
Like when you don't have a degree, you got to manage some crap or sell some crap. Yeah. I sold cars.
Nice.
And I tell my wife, my girlfriend said, "Hey, I can't marry a car salesman," and she wasn't kidding. And so I went.
Shelly doesn't play.
Shelly. Awesome.
So I was like, "Will a restaurant manager work?" And she's like, "Yeah, you'll be a restaurant manager. That's fine." She's like, "You ever waited a restaurant before a manager?" I'm like, "No." She goes, "Well, how are you going to get the job?" Like, it doesn't matter. I'm a car salesman.
So, yeah.
But I got the job. So what happened was Shelly and I went to Hawaii. I saw Bruce Wayne, right? Because Bruce showed me the two things that most people covet, which is time and money. And, when I looked out into the world, most of us have one, and very few of us have both, right? People have money, tend to not have a lot of time, and people that have a lot of time tend to be broke, right?
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so I remember he said real estate was the vehicle. So I was like, cool. I started reading books, and I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad in 2004.
Yes.
And that book automatically, I'm reading it, I'm like, that's Bruce. That's Bruce. Bruce owns apartments. And I was hooked. And from that point, in 2005, I started my company. I started it with the end in mind. I called it Kahuna Investments because I truly wanted to be the big kahuna like Bruce. And now I also had to do some reflection because I said, gosh, I really want to do this business, but what do I have right now? And I had a little bit of money, and I say a little bit, like a little bit, right?
Okay.
And I didn't have any credit. I already knew that was in this crapper because I had filed bankruptcy in 2003, from my trial marriage. Okay.
Started marriage. Okay.
Yeah, but I had a lot of what I had a lot of was ambition, and drive, and so I started real
Cory,
estate.
hang on, buddy. You had something else that I think is super, super important. Ambition and drive, very important. But you had one more thing that I think a lot of people, you tell me if you agree with this, but I think a lot of people are lacking this when they start out into this arena. And that is, you knew how to sell. You'd been a car salesman, man. You knew how to sell and you knew how to negotiate. And that is a massive skill set that I think a lot of people fail to realize is really, really critical in any business, but in this one specifically. And you had that one going for you too. Sorry to interrupt you, man.
No. So that's the truth. I knew I had charisma. I know how to talk to people. I wasn't afraid to talk to people. And I wasn't afraid to take action. So I remember reading books, and like when I first started, I was like going, I was book read at first, right? So when you first start, a lot of us start book read. Like you go to Barnes and Nobles, now we go to our iPhones, right? But I read every book I could, and then I read one that said, take a second on your home. This is like in 2005. I'm like, oh, great. I'll take a second on my home. I'm like, oh, I got $25,000. Now I can go buy some real estate. So I went and bought, I opened up a Yellow Pages, right? That's ancient, right?
Yes.
I opened up Yellow Pages, and I was looking, I went to the credit unions because I was like, man, a book I read said, call the banks and ask for the REO department. Well, banks scared me, but I was like, what about credit unions? They seem like a little nicer, a little friendlier. So I started off in the credit unions and American Airlines Federal Credit Union. I met a girl named Holly Lane, right? That was the REO department director. And she sold me my first 2 homes. I bought and sold, flipped, made some money. And then I bought 3 more other homes and I kept them. I was like, I'm going to have some rental property. And that's when I made my first mistake because I ran out of money. Right? I had a little bit of my profit in each of those rental properties, yet I was only making maybe $600 a month. And so that wasn't enough to live on, and we still needed Cory's income. And so I actually put my dream on hold. Because I didn't know how to get past it. Like, it was a roadblock that I didn't know how to get past. And so I became a financial advisor with Edward Jones. And one of my friends, I go, don't you have to have a degree to do that? He goes, no. I'm like, what? Tell me more. Like, how do I do that? Like, my eyes got big, dude.
Okay.
And
That's
so,
wow, that's interesting. Yeah.
I got Series 7 and 66 license, and I did it in a wonderful time, 2006. Okay.
Okay.
Because I had like 2 years, and then the market crashed. And so I put my dream on hold in real estate. Now I'm going to get to the point here. I'm going to tell you how I got real successful, right? But you got to build this backstory. Is kind of funny and neat because what Edward Jones did for me was teach me everything about money, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, how to go find money, where money hangs out, how to get them to take, like my goal was to take and say, I got this stock, bond, or mutual fund, and here's the story. I was selling mutual fund stories, and if you got $100,000, I think you should invest it today. And but it taught me how to be a master networker. Cool. Now, when the market crashed, my heart left the business, right? Because every investment that I made for anybody went to half, right? And when they're crying and feeling bad, once your heart leaves your business, right? So does your sales.
You're done.
So does your sales. And so I walk into my office one morning, and I got a meeting at 10 o'clock. And I walk in at 8, and my secretary can't look at me. And I know the call has been made. I'm toast, right? I'm getting canned. And so as I'm 2 hours, I'm sitting there, I'm like, dude, first thing I did was print a client list and put it in my truck. Okay. Step number 1. So I was thinking to myself, I was like, dude, what am I going to do? Like, I got to have a plan B. Like, I got to come home to my wife and say, honey, here's what we're going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. And man, I already knew what I wanted to do. See, that little kid, that kid had never stopped dreaming, right? That little farm boy.
Yeah.
He still really wanted to be somebody. And I'll try not to get emotional because this is how impactful that one little moment of my life is. Because truly, it's the time in my life where everything changed. And I'll tell you, the universe will give you what you believe, right? And so in the 4 walls of that office all by myself. I made the deepest, most gut-wrenching, I mean, I'm telling you, everything that I absolutely am, commitment. And I made it to myself. And I made the commitment that I'd be willing to do whatever it took. I don't want to get emotional on this, but to be a successful real estate investor, right? And I sold out to the idea. I mean, as long as it was legal and ethical, there's nothing that I was not willing to do. You say you got to do it and stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning every day. Done. Check mark. I'll do it. Right. And it was that level of commitment. And I'm telling you, from that point on in my life, the universe opened up to me. And
isn't it amazing, Cory, about how luck happens? You know, I find that when you're actually looking for opportunities, they're all over the place. They're all over the place. And when you're not looking for them, one couldn't slap you in the face and you'd know that it was an opportunity. And I think it's so cool that you get emotional about that, because there are certain points in my life too that are exactly like that moment where something changed dramatically, and it's always around a huge commitment like that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
You burnt the boats.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
no going back. Yep.
I love that.
It really was. I can say it right here. Right here was the time. Now, funny how things work, but and then I started to change. You know, I say copy your way to success because, I just keep learning from other things. I learned from Edward Jones. I learned from in the car business how to sell. I learned from the manager of a restaurant business how to manage people, right? How to look at P&Ls, right? Everything I was doing was kind of setting me up for what I was just about ready to do. And so I got into, 2009, I'm canned, 2008, right? Something like that. I'm canned. I'm now full-time on my own. Kahuna Investments is going into business. And again, I just took stock and said, where am I at? And I said, well, I still don't have any money. I got a limited amount of money, but I have a whole lot of want to do it. And so I took that momentum, but now I knew how to network, how to meet people, how to do all kinds of things. So I go to my local RIA, and I found all the guys that had lots of money. And I was like, smart. So I'm a good copier, right? Like when I copy, I copy well. And so now Tony Robbins says it's modeling success. So I like the word copy better, but we can call it modeling success to keep.
If you want to be all fancy, you can call it modeling, whatever.
Yeah, to tone it down, right? Because people might be offensive to the word copy, right? But so we're modeling success here.
Right.
But I would go to the RIAs, and I would just go to the guy that's running the RIA and say, hey, listen, I'm new. Can you help me out and point me out some of the guys that are actually, some of the bigger players here? And they're like, yeah, because, dude, they're happy that you're coming to the RIA. They're like, well, that guy that way, the John, Ron, and then this. And so guess who's sitting right next to him? Me, right? And I'd be like, oh, so, what do you do? Act like I don't even know. Like, I'm not going to point out that I know he's successful. I'm just going to start the conversation. And I just start asking him, what does he do? He starts telling me, oh, I'm rehabbing this. Oh, really? What areas do you like to do in? What's your average rehab? How much, and I'm like taking the order of what his deal looks like, what his perfect deal looks like.
That's awesome.
Right? And then I'm like, guess what? It's just like coincidence, but I find deals just like that.
Right?
That's great.
It's amazing. Like
that's so cool.
That networking skill, that's so prominent in all of the people that I see that are successful.
Yeah.
Angela and I talk about this all the time. Like our business, it's amazing how fast the business grew once we got out of our own corner.
Yeah.
Started sharing with other people like you're doing today. You're sharing with all of the people and
just sharing that story is powerful, right?
It is.
It is.
It does a couple of things, man. It tells other people that they can do it too. But in the same breath, it tells everybody else that is doing it, okay, this guy's for real. He knows what he's talking about, right?
Yeah.
And he knows a whole bunch of people. Like we need to get to know that guy.
Yes. And it's really about your scars. Like it's always being willing to run off that cliff and fail. I've always been willing to do it. And sometimes you crash, right? But what I always had was a really good support system too. I want to make sure I bring up my wife here just for a quick moment. because honestly, she is the reason I'm successful. Not because of anything else that I've told you so far. It was because when I came home and told her my dreams and goals when I got fired from everything, because I made the commitment to myself, but I still had to go sell it to my wife, right? And so, and I spilled my guts to her and said, and honey, because we still needed my income. And she was like, because what was at stake was my marriage, my kids, my family, everything.
Yeah.
And because I didn't want to go the secure route. I wanted to go the route, right? And so, but man, Shelly, I remember her looking at me and saying, honey, I support you, right? But she also said, but you better do not fail, right? Do not fail us. But man, I will say Shelly has been my coat of armor. Whenever I would make mistakes or money mistakes or have bruises or just, she was always there to mend me with her words of passion and her songs of praise and build me up again and make me feel invincible. And then, once she got me mended up, she'd kick me out the door and say, go get him, Tiger. You're my man. Yeah. And that gave me the confidence to keep going out and failing, right?
Yeah.
Because really it's about failing and not giving up, right? And so I kind of want to transition. So what happens, I started wholesaling, doing a pretty good job. And then, but the thing was, I was making like a $3,000 wholesaling fee. And now I'm managing out-of-state people. And I'm managing their rehabs for them. And they're making like $25,000 or $30,000 rips. And I'm making like a $3,000 wholesaling fee.
Right.
And so we're going to enter Carl into my life. So Carl was one of my clients at Edward Jones. But Carl had no extra money. It was all tied up in like his retirement stuff. But me and Carl played racquetball. We still play racquetball. So I was telling Carl what I was doing, and he would watch me kind of get. He knows I got fired now, but of course I told him I quit Edward Jones back in the day. Right.
right. But this is Get Real, so you can tell us. It's okay.
Yeah. So, so he's watching me become successful wholesaling, and so I go, Carl, here's my problem. I'm like, they're making 25, I'm making 3. I want to flip the script, right? And Carl lived in a retirement community. I was like, man, Carl's got to know somebody. So I was asking Carl, not for money, but for his help. And I said, Carl, listen, you're seeing me do this. If you could give me introduce me to somebody, I could pay like 12%, give him a note and deed of trust. And so he's like, great, no problem. I'll see what I can do. Well, the next day, guess who calls? It's Carl. And Carl's like, hey man, Cory, do you still want to do that 12%? And I was like, well, yeah. And in the back of my mind, I was like, man, Carl found somebody. And he goes, Cory, you don't know this, but my home is totally paid for. I can borrow money at 3%. And if you give me 12, I make a spread. How much money do you need? Now that's a loaded question, right?
Yeah.
So I gather everything that I am. I'm like, Carl, I need $85,000. And Carl was like, yeah, okay, yeah, no problem. Where do you want me to send it?
Oh my God.
And just like that, I'm telling you, man, my jaw hit the ground, and I was like, because I didn't even know where to put it. And but that was my first piece of private money. And you want to talk about some limiting beliefs that Cory used to have, right? And I'm sure some of your listeners probably have this, like, I'm not good enough for people to give me money, right? Or I'll never be like, I had a lot of that baggage because of how I grew up poor. And the way I thought about money was very poor in thinking. Even though I've been trained as a financial advisor, I just didn't think I was good enough.
And Cory, that $85,000, like, to you in that moment, that was a lot of money, right? I mean, that was a big ask.
Yeah.
It was everything, man. I'm telling you. I mean,
people, I think anybody who's out there doing real estate right now, they're thinking $85,000, that's not that big of a deal. People who haven't done any real estate.
No, but if you haven't started, that's huge.
Thoughts that you do, but for you in that moment, asking that dude for $85,000, that was a big deal, right?
It was a big deal, man. And man, once I got it, man, it was. I tell you, I always say, it was like going into the telephone booth as Clark Kent, and I spun around that sucker, dude, and I'm like, I raised private money. It's like Superman, man. And, but what I did was, for me, is it made me open my eyes again. I'm like, wow, I can do this. And then I looked out again and said, well, who else is raising money? I'm like, oh my God, there's lots of people raising money. I'm like, what do they have? What are they using to do it? Oh, they have to have a credibility kit. You have a private money program. And so I started putting all these tools together, and soon, like within like 3 or 4 months, I'm raising millions of dollars, right? I have probably about, in 2009, 10, couple mil, maybe $3 million working in fix and flips. Now I'm hustling.
So hang on just a second, dude. So you went from, joke spun in that phone booth, because you went from literally from $85,000 ask, which was a big deal, to like what, in a year you had raised
probably a year and a half, about 3 million.
You raised like $3 million.
Yeah.
So you got over your fear instantaneously, right?
Well,
There, right?
Because I looked out and I go, well, what do I need to do to raise more money? I need to be a leader, right? So I was like, okay. Yep. So I started my own RIA, right? Or, my little group, a little meetup group, right? And I taught what I knew. And money, I always said money shows up in the room all the time. And they all want to do real estate, but eventually they just give me their money because they can never pull the trigger.
Because it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Don't we know?
Yeah. And so, and that's what would happen. I'd pull money in that room all the time. And then referrals. Oh my God, referrals. I mean, once you do good by somebody, they become a walking billboard for you.
Yep.
So tell me, like, so now you've raised millions of dollars. Okay. We've gone from farm boy getting his feelings hurt, crushed. Now we've gone all this path. Now you've learned how to raise money. You can raise millions of dollars. How do you get from wholesaling, rehabbing, doing the normal real estate business to very large, because I know a little bit about your portfolios, to very large multifamily properties, because people listening to this, there's probably some people out there going, yeah, I got a wholesale business. I can relate to part of this story. But how do you go from Clark Kent to Superman, and then from Superman to, what is the next Thor?
Thor's better.
I don't know.
One of those guys, right?
Yeah.
One of those
guys. How do you get there? And tell us. I'm going to tell you another pain story.
Okay.
Because man, like the world would look at me and say, Cory, you have it all. Like we all understand that real estate can get you, it's intoxicating and you can get lost in it. And especially in single family, like when you're doing all the work. And I was mad. I mean, here I am, I'm like doing it by myself this whole time. Like I don't have any staff.
Oh my God.
Right. I'm a workaholic, obviously. Right. But here's what happened. So I'm successful doing probably 6 to 7 flips a month. And you got to keep that machine going, driving properties. So my son says, hey Dad, are you going to be at my game tomorrow? No problem, son. I'll be there. And, but I had 3 properties I didn't look at that week. And so I was like, I'll devise a plan. Like Saturday morning, I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to go look at this property. I'll do all these things and I'll be back in time for the game. Okay. That's what I said in my mind. And then things get distracted, right? I get to the first job site and like, why the hell you guys got this? You don't need this. Like, gosh, dang it. I go to Lowe's, I drop some stuff off, pick some stuff up. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm running behind. And long story short, man, I get at the very end of the game, and dude, my son comes off the field, and she's another one. You guys got me 2 in a row. This one was tough, man. This one hurt me really bad because my son was crying, dude, and I remember grabbing his head and putting it in my chest, and he's like, "You promised, Dad. You promised." And that's a tough one. That's a tough feeling if you're and I'm a full-time dad. I want to be the coach, right? And be there for my kids and here I am failing as a father, not just a little bit, but in a bad way. And and now kids are resilient. They love you no matter what. And so he still wanted to jump in my truck and me to take him home, right? But the whole time on the truck, it was like agonizing pain for me because he's, just trying, and I'm just, I drop him off and I get in my truck and my wife's looking at me. It's like, you better fix this, right? You better fix it. And I'm driving and I'm asking God, I'm like, forgive me, right? You know, why am I failing and everything? And I finally drive long enough and enough time, and I ask God to where I finally actually forgive myself. I come to a place of calmness. And man, I'm telling you, no longer than I got in that spot, that I drive by this stupid apartment that I've driven by so many times. And, you know, I used to say, I wish I could own an apartment. And that was all it was a wish. But on that particular day, my mind was free. I was in a nice state. And I just said, well, how can I own an apartment? And I thought about Bruce for a minute.
Like, just hang tight. Hang tight. I got to unpack a few things here, because I hope the business owners out there heard the inflection and the pain still, right? That still chokes you up. I hope the business owners out there are hearing this, because this is the Get Real podcast, right? So we've had a couple of Get Real moments with Cory. This is one of them. So when you out there convince yourself that you're doing this for your kids, and then you miss your kids' games, I hope you just heard that, and you don't have to experience what Cory did. So take his pain and take his Get Real moment and make a change now in your life, so that doesn't have to happen to you. Second, and this is really important, that question Cory just asked. Can you say that again, man?
How can I?
How can I? I think everybody out there is so limited by, you know, their questions and the way they speak to themselves. That question is empowering. Other questions you could have asked yourself could have been self-limiting. That one changed the game.
Changed everything, man. I'm telling you, once I said the question right in my mind, right? I flash back to Bruce, time and money, living the lifestyle. I'm like, that is what I need to be doing, apartments. He gave me the perfect vision. If I would do it correctly, I would have all the time and the money and not be running my butt off. I mean, I knew it was I was certain. And I remember I flipped a U-turn. I go to Barnes & Noble's, because I was like, my brain started working. Cory, what do you know about apartments? I don't know a whole lot. Where would you get some information? Go to Barnes & Noble's, right? Go to the multifamily section, right? I bought 4 books. And the last book, Murphy's Law, the last book I read, was called Multifamily Millions by David Lindahl, who became my mentor, right? And he taught me the business. I learned everything from him. I got to the point where I felt confident. And in 2011, I bought my first apartment deal. I bought it for $3.2 million, and I raised $1.4 million of private equity. And that was my first deal. And by the way, I sold it 2 years ago for $8.8 million.
Whew.
Man, you gotta love that.
That is sexy.
You gotta love that, Cory.
And did a 1031 exchange.
Yeah.
I bought a $12.7 million deal that will pay me about $500,000 in income, whether or not I do any work at all.
Nice.
So, man,
yeah.
Like, can you just walk us through why a person? So you just gave us a really big reason why, right? It's the passive income. But there's
sunsets and palm trees on your terms, brother.
There's a lot, Cory. Yeah. There's a lot of other reasons, and we both know these, right? We both own multifamily. It's a fantastic thing. But for people out there who are like, well, what's the difference? Like, why would I want to own an apartment building? And like, what are all of the benefits to this, right? Because you've talked about raising money. Where's all the money points? Let's kind of, let's do it. And I know this is, you teach a class called the Kahuna Boardroom, which I have attended, and it's fantastic. By the way, the team, not Cory, but the team of Cory and Shelly plus the rest of his staff, I have never been to an event where I was treated more like royalty than at your event, sir.
Thank you.
Hands down. As far as experiential, there is nothing that I've been to better. You literally are treated like Hawaiian royalty when you go to this deal, and it is really, really well done.
Cool.
So sorry, that's an aside. But you teach a class, and it's, what is it, 3 days, 2 days? I can't remember how long it was.
You were there for 3, Ron.
Yeah, so 3 days. Yeah, I was there for 3. I couldn't remember after hula dancers and all the really good food and everything else. I couldn't remember how long.
You got to have a luau if you come to the boardroom, right? So
right. That's right. So there's 3 days worth of content. Obviously, we can't do that on this show, but can you just let's just rapid fire. Yep. Angela, can we just rapid fire what are the reasons? Yeah. List all the reasons you can think of, Cory, why someone will want to buy a multifamily property.
Yeah, let's do
scale of economy, right? My first one is cash flow, right? So I'm a cash flow investor. I like rent checks coming in to my pocket every month. So cash flow is number one. But believe it or not, it makes money just like you can get like that big chunk of money that we used to get in fix and flip. We call that an acquisition fee here, right? I typically get a 4% acquisition fee when I buy a property. So if I bought a $10 million deal, right, the math is $400,000, right? Do 2 of those a year and make $800K, right? Just in upfront money, okay? Then you have cash flow, scales of economy, right? It's a lot easier to buy 100 doors than it is to buy 22 doors or even a 4-plex or 5-plex because when you buy a multifamily property, they rate it on the property more than they do on you personally, okay? Now, the other big one is taxes.
Yeah, baby.
So, Cory Peterson does not pay taxes. Not the kind of tax. I just don't. So,
but you're not like the who was the movie star that decided he wasn't going to pay taxes because it wasn't legal?
Oh yeah, not that guy.
Not that kind, right?
Yeah. So properties, when you're a true investor. So Robert talked about this in his book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, of being an investor. See, anybody that's wholesaling or fix and flip, and I'm not here to poo-poo on them, but I'm just going to tell you, you're a trader with a D. But if you do it long enough, you'll feel like with an AI trader, right, to the business, right? Because we all wanted sunsets and palm trees.
Yeah.
Right? We wanted residual money, and we've kind of thought that was fix and flip. Well,
it's a great way to get there, to get the money to get started. But
yeah,
right,
yeah. Or you just learn how to raise other people's money. That was my biggest aha moment is I can raise other people's money and do this thing called real estate. And the great thing about the multifamily space is a lot of it's done for me. So I own over almost $100 million worth of real estate. I have an admin, Susie, and I have 2 other people that work for my info business. That's about it. Now I have lots of other people that work with Cory, like my management company, my lawyers, my, everybody, my loan officer, right?
Oh, partners, yeah.
Yeah, but Cory's day-to-day is not in, I don't have to, I truly have freedom, right? So, and then taxes, we do a thing called cost segregation studies. And so right now, we just did, we bought a $10 million property, and normally you can take the property minus the land, and you can take that value and divide it by 27.5. Now that's and then you get your average depreciation. Or you can do a cost segregation study. Well, what's that? Well, that's just where a bunch of engineers get together and say, well, you don't have a property, you have a bunch of drywall and a bunch of electrical and a bunch of appliances, and they all have different lifetime values. And so shorthand is we got a $3 million depreciation that we can use in year 1. So I bought a $10 million property and I get $3 million of depreciation. And because I get to say that I'm a real estate professional, I can offset any of my other earned income. So that's huge.
That is huge. Wow.
It is such a massive thing. I don't think people really fully comprehend. And maybe, man, if you'll let me just state, everybody's heard the penny a day. If I gave you $1 million today or a penny a day compounded daily for 30 days, which would you take? And everybody now knows that it's over $5 million, the penny a day compounded, right?
Yep.
But a penny a day compounded that's taxed is worth $46,000 on day 30. So if you don't think this is a big deal, it is a big freaking deal. All right. as Joe Biden would say. It's a big freaking deal, right?
It's a big freaking deal, brother.
It's a big freaking deal. So those are such great, I mean, the cash flow, the tax savings, the economies of scale is a big one, right? Because if you have 3, 4, 5 vacancies, it's not that big of a deal.
We don't even care. No one. I'm not doing anything.
Right.
No.
Right. And the other thing is the freedom you were talking about. I mean, Angela and I talk about this all the time on the podcast. What the hell did we all go into business for to begin with? Right, Angela? I mean,
it's more time. I mean, I don't want to this question may sound dumb, but I'm sure other people are wondering it. Like in our company, with selling real estate, Cory, we teach people to start out buying single family homes for cash flow and then multifamily. And then eventually we get into apartments. So somebody who's starting out like with us, like how do they know, I mean, if they're not doing the fix and flip route, or I guess even if they are, like, how do you know if you're ready to get started in this? Like, are you saying people should just go out and start raising money and then they can invest in apartments, or is there other criteria to be like ready to invest?
That's a great question, Angela.
Okay.
So I'll tell you this. It is a completely different business, in my opinion, right? The nomenclature is different.
100%.
How we look at it, how it's viewed, how you underwrite it, it's 1,000% different than residential real estate. So the truth is, you could be a doctor, dentist, lawyer, or you can start from nothing like Cory Peterson did. It's just more work, right? To start from nothing, right? But I always I got to where I got because I followed some steps. I wasn't ready for the meat. I went to the milk, which was wholesaling, right? And wholesaling is a crazy, easy
farmer
way.
Boy there. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
You can go get some milk, and really that's been a great business. I only stopped wholesaling a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
Okay.
Right? Because my wife's like, you don't need any more businesses. Get rid of some. Right?
And he didn't.
Yeah.
And he didn't. He did not need any more
so
business.
Cory, so how does somebody, I mean, if they're not just going to buy it straight out because they've gotten to that point in their life, like how do they get started in the apartment business?
Find a partner, find a mentor, right? Go to events, like I've always been willing, like this is my style. When I need something, I want something, I will search and destroy who is it that I need to be in front of and meet, right? And then I will make it my life's mission. Dude, I flew all the way out to Boston to meet David Lindahl just to have stupid lunch, right? So I could meet the guy. And he tells the story. He's like, is he, they're like, he's coming? No, he's coming. And like, he still didn't believe me. Like I got there to his place because I flew in that morning and I showed up and they're like, oh crap, he's here. Right. And like, they didn't know because they already booked his schedule.
Oh my gosh.
And so I had been on, and we finally went to lunch and we talked, and because I was getting ready to invest in his training program, I wanted to meet David. I wanted to really meet him. Right. It was important for me. And
cool. Yeah.
So I always say like the easiest way is to partner with somebody.
Okay. So I'd say like if that's the first action step, like find a mentor or partner with someone. Any other tips on how to get started?
I can teach you how to raise money. Right.
Oh, okay. That's good.
So
right.
I mean.
Yeah. I mean, Cory didn't know I was going to say this, but his boardroom is legit. It's 3 days of a boot camp where there's no upsell and you can learn. And then if you go to it and you understand what you're doing, he'll partner with you on deals. I know a ton of my business owner friends, guys who are wholesaling, rehabbing, who hadn't already gotten into this business, who are now in this business, and they partnered with Cory after going to his boardroom. Like I was at the first one. I'm OG.
You are the OG.
I'm OG at the boardroom,
Cool.
but it's fantastic, and it's not the least expensive program in the world, but it is really well done. And for the opportunity afterwards to be able to do what Cory just said, which is to partner with somebody who knows what they're doing, who owns $100 million worth of property, not to mention the management company and the attorneys and everything else that comes with it, that it's taken years for Cory to develop.
Yeah, we give you our team. But, what I've learned is this, right? So if I could start, you said, Cory, start again, and where you start, right?
Yeah.
I would learn how to raise private capital. Okay. I know that sounds very weird. Like you wouldn't what about finding how to analyze deals? Listen, screw all that. Listen, learn how to raise a crap ton of private money. Right?
Yep.
Where you can command capital. And when you say jump, it says how high, right?
Awesome.
Because that's all about relationships, right? And even if you're not into real estate, you can find someone that's a fix and flipper and say, I'm going to raise capital for you, right? And because the money is in the money. The money's not in real estate, by the way. I know we all think it is, but it's not. The money is in the being able to raise capital. What Cory's good at is raising money, and then I get to put it in this vehicle called Apartments, right?
Yep.
I like the vehicle because it doesn't require a lot of my work. I understand I built a great team to support it, and then it can do what it does, and my job is just to my capital.
Right.
Right? And, I didn't tell you the story, but how I got my first deal is I went into a David Lindahl event. I stood up in the back of the room. It was like day one of a 4-day event. And and this never happens, but they're like, does anybody want to make an announcement? We talk about
Really?
the water partying for you, at the right time.
Yeah.
I stood up in the back of the room. I go, listen, I've got a crap ton of money and I'm looking for some deals. Is there any deals out there? Come see me. And
oh my gosh.
I call it the Corleone method. Because it was like the Godfather. Everybody's like, hey, Cory, can you see a deal? Because I didn't buy lunch or dinner for the rest of the week.
Oh, man, I bet.
And so that's how I found my first deal. Is the one that I just told you that I bought was through that event. And some guys needed my money really bad, and I got 75% ownership of their deal.
No, that's freaking cool. That's great advice.
Fantastic.
Thanks so much, Cory. Yeah. So where can people go, find out more about what you do and, watch your podcast? Tell us where to go.
Yeah. So I'll give you two great places. So for free information on apartments and everything you ever, whatever. I teach this stuff on my podcast called Multifamily Legacy Podcast.
It's a fantastic one. I'm subscribed. You guys should all go subscribe to it. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And the other one is go to Kahuna Boardroom, kahunaboardroom.com. You can apply. We only allow 35 people into our boardroom event, but we do it because we can create community with 35 people. That's the number that I can physically teach and teach well.
Okay. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Cory. That was some great information. I really appreciate it. We loved having you on.
It really was, man. Thank you for getting so real too.
You guys got me emotional twice.
We loved it. It was awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. And everyone listening, thanks for being here. You can go check out our podcast or leave us feedback as well on getrealestatesuccess.com. And thanks, Cory.
Thanks.
See everyone later.
This has been the Get Real Podcast. To subscribe and for more information, including a list of all episodes, go to getrealestatesuccess.com.